Hey, how's it going? This is James P. White from 95.7 Cruise FM, The Locker Room. Welcome to the Jedi Jimmy Podcast. This is episode number 25. This is a total breakdown of the Obi Wan Kenobi series. Holy... I have to do it. Shit. This was amazing. This was one of the best series I've ever seen in my entire life. So this episode right now is actually going to be dealing with a breakdown of all the predictions I made throughout this series and whether or not they came true, as well as my predictions for the future. There's going to be more stuff coming, baby. I'm so excited. Now, first, in episode 1 and 2, I kind of did them both at the same time. I did have a feeling that Black Chris Stanton was going to come in, but he didn't, because that was actually going to be something that was in the comics. That didn't happen, but just wait. I got some ideas for later. There will definitely be, this was a prediction earlier, there will be a battle between Obi-Wan and the remaining Inquisitors. That didn't happen. As well as I thought the Jedi was one of the Jedi younglings was going to be the Jedi that showed up in episode 1, who later died. I'm pretty sure that was wrong, and I'll prove why in a minute. Also, the fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, I predicted that was going to happen. That did actually happen twice in episode 3 and episode 6. Now, my predictions in episode 3 was I thought Quinlan Vos of the Jedi Order, he actually was a tracker that showed up in, he was in the early comics as well as the Clone Wars a little bit, and he did make an appearance. You saw him in the background on Tatooine when everybody met Anakin, but that's coming up later. I thought he did survive. He was part of the path, but he hasn't showed up in the episode at all. As well as I thought that Quinlan was actually going to help Obi-Wan track down Leia when she was kidnapped at the beginning. That didn't happen. Also, I thought that Ben will end up calming his mind and being able to commune with Qui-Gon Jinn, which he tried early on, but he couldn't get focused. That did happen in episode 6. Now, also a prediction I had is in episode 4, I knew there was going to be another battle with Vader, because if you remember in episode 3, Vader kicked the crap out of Obi-Wan, like burnt him in the fires and all that kind of stuff. I knew there was going to be a rematch, and it happened in episode 6. And why? Because Obi-Wan did cast away his fear. He was afraid. He had a lot of doubt, but he cast it away in episode 6. I'm going to touch on that again. It is guaranteed that the Inquisitors and Darth Vader, and this was in episode 4, will go to Jabim in episode 5, which they did, to go after the Jedi and the path, because they figured out where they were. Because again, Reva, kind of like Siva but different. She put a tracking in Lola, which was Leia's droid, and they followed them, but they were able to escape. Who knew? And one of my best parts actually happened in that episode. I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Now, I thought Quinlan Vos was going to make an appearance on Sabine. Didn't happen. I think that another prediction I had was I thought that Vader would kill Reva by the end of the series. He almost did. He tried in episode 5. I'll revisit that. Another prediction I did have was that the Grand Inquisitor, using the Sith's ability to regenerate, would live after Reva stabbed him through the chest with her lightsaber. And he did survive. We see that in episode 5. Now we're in episode 5. And after Reva saw the transmission of Luke, transmission between Obi Wan and Senator Organa dealing with Luke, I predicted that she was going to go to Tatooine because she knew who Owen was. I predicted it. It did happen in episode 6. As well as, I'll deal with episode 6 in a minute. And I said in one of the earlier episodes that I believed that Reva was one of the younglings who escaped in episode 1, in a flashback to Order 66. She was. The only reason she joined the Inquisitors was actually to get back at Vader. I'll touch on that in a minute. Again, in episode 5, I still believed that Quinlan Vos was going to show up on Tatooine, but he didn't. But I thought he did because if you remember from episode 1 during the pod race, you could actually see Quinlan Vos in the stands watching the pod races. I figured he lived there. Still hasn't showed up yet. We still have a chance in future series. Now, my predictions for episode 6 is I said I don't believe there will be another season of the Obi-Wan series because the storylines were basically concluded. But if there is, this is an if there is, Vader won't be involved because he won't see Obi-Wan again till A New Hope. But if there is, the next season will be one of two things will happen in the next 2 seasons if there is 2 more seasons. And Obi-Wan will kill Darth Maul either in the next season or the following one. And in the 3rd season, Obi-Wan will fight Black K, so Black Chrysanthemum, the dark Wookiee that showed up in the Boba Fett series. They will fight, but actually Obi-Wan will get the crap beat out of him. Different story. Now, another prediction I do have is that there is actually room for a Reva series. If there isn't, Reva might actually show up in the spin-off or in the Ahsoka Tano series. I'm so looking forward to that. Now, my favorite highlights from the entire series. 1 is both battles between Vader and Obi-Wan. The first battle, Obi-Wan had his ass handed to him. He was not focused. He did not have his crap together. But it was pretty damn good. And then the second fight where Obi-Wan not only did his traditional Form 3, but threw in traditional Form 4 and Form 7 of lightsaber combat to defeat Vader, who focused on his Form 5. He could not keep up once Obi-Wan shed his fear. It was awesome. Now, one of the questions I've been asked throughout the series, I'm going to touch on that right now. So, Rob the Dick, he's a listener to the Locker Room. He said, "Hey, Jimmy, I watched the last episode, that's episode 6, and can you explain how Vader can sense Obi-Wan at the beginning of the battle, but he couldn't sense that he was behind him until it was almost too late?" Because with the Sith, they can sense fear, they can sense anger. And the thing is by the end of that battle, when Obi-Wan was coming behind Vader, he had neither. He was centered in the Force. So he wasn't attacking in anger or in fear. He was joined with his Jedi self. So Obi-Wan let go of his fear, and Vader couldn't feel it. Now, every episode of this series, I always talk about my favorite quotes. So I'm going to go through them quickly. In episode 1, Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. The Jedi code is like an itch. They can't help it. That was the Grand Inquisitor. Episode 2, you think the less you say, the less you give away. But really the opposite is true. Actually, Leia said that to Obi-Wan in episode 2. Episode 3, Quinlan Voss wrote on a wall. So it was a quote written on the wall. Only when your eyes are closed can you truly see. Episode 4. See, the problem with episode 4 is I had a bit of an issue with finding a quote from that. But in episode 2, Obi-Wan is explaining the Force to Leia. And he goes, "Have you ever been afraid of the dark? How does it feel when you turn the light back on?" And his response was, "It feels like that," before she could respond. Episode 5, the light will fade, but it is never forgotten. That was actually an Obi-Wan quote. Another quote from is also from Obi-Wan, which says, he says to Anakin in the flashback, "Your need for victory blinds you. Your need for victory blinds you." Deep quote. In episode 6, this was Anakin to Obi-Wan, and he says, "You did not kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. The same way I will destroy you." Awesome. Such a great series. I loved every second of it. Now, my highlights, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, is the lightsaber battles. I loved Mando. I loved the Boba Fett series. But I'm a huge lightsaber fan. And this was it, baby. I need to thank you for joining me with this series. Now, I am going to take a break for a few weeks. My next couple episodes of the Jedi Jimmy Podcast will be not only showing you how to create plastic replica of many of the melee weapons that are used throughout Star Wars. So the Gatvi stick as well as the Beskar spear. But that will go on. I will show you how to make replicas of it and demonstrate techniques that were used throughout the series. And also, that's going to be between now and August 31st, which the Andor series does start. Dude, I'm looking forward to this. I need to thank you for joining me. I look forward to see you in a few weeks. I do need to thank my sponsors. First of all, the Dean Blundell Network on deanblundell.com, where you can find my podcast and many others, one of which is the Fire for Effect podcast, which is done by my buddy Army Chris. And I do need to thank him as well. I'm using his setup. He helps me with the production of this, and I need to thank him. I look forward to seeing you next week. May the Force be with you. Always.